Tom Savage of Three Red Kings. Tom, a busy weekend ahead as Munster look to confirm their Pro 14 final spot. All that's standing between them and that showdown with Leinster is Connacht at the weekend, and a big opportunity here for Munster to get the win, put that final spot to bed, and then put all the attention and focus towards Leinster.
That's it, really. Look, I think Munster, they know that one win out of the next 3 games will do it. Why not be this one, you know? I think Connacht, in a way, will have more of their first teamers available to them than Munster. They have all their internationals back from the international camp. So, I mean, Connacht in that regard will be confident coming into this game. But I think for Munster, there's an opportunity now, first time back at home for a number of weeks, to really nail down that final spot, and they'll want to do it in this one. You know, obviously they want to win the game, but you want to have as many games as possible to try and get some minutes into guys, rotate, make sure you're as fresh as possible for that final, because it's going to be happening straight after the Six Nations, you know, so you need to have the kind of, I suppose, fluidity, cohesion, freshness that you need to have the best chance possible of winning that silverware, and it starts with this game on Friday night.
Yeah, and I noticed you said it does kind of the final of this is going to be coming up. It's not going to be when we'd usually expect it in kind of the kind of end of April, May. It's going to be a lot earlier this year, obviously, to allow for the proposed South African teams joining for this extended rainbow tournament afterwards as well. But look, it's been a season of real progress, I think, for Munster, and probably a season that, you know, we've all been kind of, and if you remember too, they've done what they've done this year without the influence of RG Snyman, who would have been factored in as a key building block of what Munster are trying to do. Now, they have managed to date to do a hell of a lot of work. And if you think of the impact that, you know, take the example of Coombs for an example, and what he has done this year, he has really stepped into that void, you know, in the pack that Snyman had left during his injury. And I think they've, you know, we have to remember too, like, Snyman is like a new signing when he comes back in. We saw him running during the week, which was fairly exciting. You'd be hoping that that's a positive sign with regards to a possible return, hopefully for a final.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, I don't know if he'll be back in time for a Pro 14 final. It certainly would be fitting, you know, if it was if he was to come back for that, but Munster haven't put a timeline on it, and I think rightly so. But you look at the way Munster have handled this season, I agree with you there. Like, last year, they lost Arno Botha back to South Africa. And Gavin Coombs, in the absence of that guy, Arno Botha, who, let's not forget, is a capped Springbok, Gavin Coombs has stepped in and I think performed incredibly well, incredibly strongly. This is a guy, I think, who Munster have brought through really, really well. Like, I remember watching him a couple of years ago in a British and Irish Cup final, in Musgrave Park, and playing incredibly strongly there. And I remember thinking, this guy is set up to have a pretty big future. I think you could rush a guy like that. And I think what Munster have done really well is graduate him through all the way along, so that anytime he's played, he's looked really ready for that level. He stepped up to Champions Cup level. I think he played really well in that game against Claremont and Harlequins. And now you look at the way he's been scoring tries and playing. I think he's a great player. I think he's a real bonus for Munster this year, out of many. Like, you look at some of the other, like, he's recently signed a new 2-year contract that was announced today. Guys like John Hodnett are the same. That's a kind of a credit to how Munster have performed over this entire season. I think it's been really, really strong. A lot of the criticisms that have been kind of waged at Munster before about not bringing through young players, I think that was more to do with making sure that the guys were ready for the level of rugby that was needed. Because I think guys have come through and I think they've looked fantastic. They haven't looked like guys who are starting off like they're like young players who are out of their depth. I'm talking about Ben Healy. I'm talking about Gavin Coombs. I'm talking about John Hodnett when he was fit and available. These are all guys, I think, who have performed incredibly well, and I think who have earned their deals, and I think are setting up Munster for whatever about the future, playing well right now, and, you know, making themselves looking incredibly valuable. I haven't even mentioned the likes of Tom Ahern, Jack Crowley, and other guys, so I think will be a big staple of the future too.
Yeah, certainly they seem to be building and going in the right direction. I know we do sound like a broken record at times, but, you know, I for one cannot wait for, hopefully not getting ahead of ourselves, but for that showdown with Leinster. And I think we really have a huge shot at them. Superb as well last weekend, obviously, to see Joey Carberry back in action. Looked like he hadn't skipped a beat, but you're always kind of watching him like you just always kind of that fear that something's going to happen. But I think that we'll have to get over that too. The more we watch him play, the more we'll see him settle back into it. And, you know, hopefully he's another guy that can get a run of minutes between now and the end of the season, because, you know, it might take him a while to get up to the pitch of full throttle Pro 14 match action. But, you know, you'd imagine too that the importance of getting business done this weekend against Connacht would be crucial for the likes of Joey Carberry, in that it would give him an opportunity of game time in games that I won't say don't matter, but that you know, that we could try out some things in the matches leading up to that final.
Oh yeah, you'd feel like a nervous parent watching him at times, you know, just like watching him going out there and thinking, geez, he's not hurt. He got a shot there off, I think it was Ray Lilo against Cardiff last week, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, I hope he's okay. But look, it's just one of those things where that nervousness is just going to be there around Joey for the next while, until he kind of, I suppose, just proves his fitness is back to where it needs to be. I mean, genuinely, he looked pretty sharp out there, to be honest. You know, looked like a guy who, great to see him back out there enjoying his rugby. Looks in great nick. So look, Munster will be patient with him. They know that he's going to be a match winner for Munster, like in the short, medium, and long term, hopefully. So they're not going to rush him. They're not going to push him beyond what he's ready for. But I think it's good to see him now pairing with Ben Healy in this game on Friday night. That's a good look for him. I'd like to see him get a good few minutes against Connacht as well. I think that, you know, you look at where Munster are building to, and like there is an impression sometimes we're kind of going, oh, they're building, maybe next year. It's just one of those ones now where, like, if they can get to this final, that is a big game against Leinster, if it is indeed Leinster who Munster end up playing, where you're looking at it and going, geez, that's a big game now for Munster. So like, you look at where Munster are winning a trophy now, I think would be a huge bonus to this group, obviously, but I think it would be a real seal of approval on what Munster have been trying to do. Like, we saw a bit of it last week against Cardiff, where you may be guilty of overplaying at times, but they were looking to put a bit of width, a bit of structure on the ball, a bit of exciting looking rugby. You know, I think that while some parts of it didn't work out, this was the first time Munster had a chance to play in when there wasn't driving wind, driving rain, playing on, you know, like a field of slurry. Like, I think it was actually like good to see it in a way, and it's not something that just comes in overnight. This is a group that want to play. This is not a group that are just looking to try and, you know, strangle their way into games. Munster are trying to play and put, I suppose, real difference points on what they're trying to do offensively. I think that they're set up to play rugby on a hard track. Is what they look like they're there to do. So that'll be an interesting one to see as the rest of the month develops, and I suppose the rest of the season, should the Rainbow Cup go ahead as planned. But I like where Munster are going, and guys like RG Snyman and guys like Joey Carberry are going to be hugely important to making sure Munster get where they need to go.
Yeah, and of course that hard track in Cardiff last weekend, a 4G pitch as well, and very, very conducive to the type of game that Munster were trying to play. And I suppose, you know, we spent so long bleating on about wanting to see them, you know, that expression, throw the ball around. I mean, throw the ball around can sound aimless at times, but it was good to see them try new things. And look, I think when fans see a team trying to develop like that they do give them a bit of a leeway, and that they have to be patient when they're trying to come it off, but when those ideas are trying to come off. But I think there's been a gradual improvement and a gradual progression in what they're trying to do from an attacking point of view as well, in that we're seeing less mistakes in that more expansive attacking game this year than we would have seen last year.
And like, sometimes when it comes to, you know, offloading and playing a game that's based on multiple passes before a ruck, you're going to have issues like, you know, knock-ons, errors. You're going to have issues at the breakdown, especially against a team like Cardiff, who were very, very good over the ball. That was certainly the case last week. But I think Munster are looking to try and showcase now that they are developing their attack, that they're moving on year after year after year. And I think that we haven't really seen anything close to what this group is capable of. And I think that you look at the way that Munster have been playing in pretty bad conditions, and I think that they're certainly capable of a lot sharper play as they build cohesion. the structure is there for it. I think Munster has shown at times that they can be incredibly expansive. So it's not just about expansive rugby, like you said. It's not just about chucking the ball around. There has to be a purpose to it. But I think what Munster are building to is quite a complete-looking game, and it's kind of, these are the games now where you kind of want to start kicking the afterburners in and, starting to torch teams a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just look at the Munster team for the Connacht game at the weekend. Fullback Mike Haley, Andrew Conway and Shane Daly on the wings, Chris Farrell and Rory Scannell in the centres. You have Craig Casey and Ben Healy as a halfback pairing that I am really looking forward to seeing. Then you're looking at James Cronin, Niall Scannell, Stephen Archer, Finian Wycherley, Billy Holland captaining the side for his 241st cap. We'll come back to Billy a bit later. Jack O'Donoghue, Chris Clutie, Gavin Coombs, then Kevin O'Byrne, Jeremy Lockman, John Ryan, Jean Klein, Jack O'Sullivan, Nick McCarthy, Joey Carberry and Damien Dialende on the bench. So Tom, it's a very, very strong Munster side. Where do you see the Connacht game breaking down, and can you see Munster getting an edge over Connacht? It's always a fairly tough nut to crack, so they are Connacht, but
it is, and I think Connacht have they're pretty strong here. This is about as strong as they can go. I think they're missing one or two guys who I think might be playing here. Don't know what the status is with them, but look, Connacht are a dangerous side. I think that they've shown, like in the last couple of weeks in particular, that they're capable of winning difficult games. They ran into a bit of a sticky situation with Benetton last week, but I think we've said it on this podcast before, that Benetton are actually much better than what their position in the league might suggest. So I look at Connacht and they're a dangerous opponent. Now, they are flawed to a certain extent. I think defensively, they've coughed up a lot of points, a lot of tries this year relative to their position. I think that's certainly an area for Munster to get at, but it'll be about managing position and managing territory, more importantly. I think if Munster can handle that area of the game relatively, I suppose, error-free, kicking smartly and managing Connacht's kicking, that will be a way for Munster to build into the game, get their set piece, get their line out going. I think that they're areas where I think they stack up to this Connacht group quite well. I like the look of that second half bench as well. You look at John Ryan, John Klein, Damien Dialende coming in off the bench. I think that's a really, really strong looking outfit there. It looks like a team that, that Munster are kind of looking to try and almost load that last third of the game with big power players. The impact that John Klein has in the scrum, for example, that could be profound in the last 30 minutes. So I think that's something that Munster are looking to try and build on. But it's going to be an incredibly tight game. I think Connacht are very good. They've certainly progressed under Andy Friend. I think he's a guy who's been fantastic for them. But it's one of those ones where I think if Munster can manage the position of where the game is played, I think they should have a little bit too much for Connacht.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. Tom, a stalwart of Munster Rugby announcing that he will retire at the end of the season this year. Billy Holland, of course, like we said earlier, 241 caps for the province, and it would be fitting if he were to depart the stage with a winner's medal in the Pro 14 this year.
So good, wouldn't it? He's a quality player. I was in the presser this week with Munster, and I asked Johan van Graan about him, just not just about the player, but about the guy off the field. And if you've seen him on the late, you've seen the money he's raised for Crumlin Children's Hospital and just the tragedies that him and his family have been through. He's just a really good guy. And he's a fella, whatever about on field or whatever else, that's a character that'll be missed around the place, he retires for me as a Munster legend. Every bit of a legend is the likes of Mick O'Driscoll and all these other guys, guys who were right up there, as iconic players, the O'Connells, the O'Callaghan's, whatever else. Those guys might have had big test careers and had loads of trophies. I think Billy Holland's career is almost as remarkable to a certain extent, because you look at guys who he came through in 2007, So this is the time when we're talking about there was iPhones were first being launched that year. So this is a long time ago. He's been a guy who's been around ever since, and plenty of opportunities to go elsewhere, I'm sure, but stuck around, went through playing, B&I Cup all the way mid-20s. I think Duncan Casey wrote a nice article about him this week in the Examiner. You look at the way that Billy Holland has just harnessed his game and turned himself. I mean, look, how many second rows do you know who are 6'3" and, you know, are in and around about 17 stone? Like, it's unheard of, really. So for him to be playing at the top end of European rugby for the last 5 or 6 years in reality, since he's been a starter for Munster, I'd say since comfortably 2014, 2015. You look at that and go, you've got to be some player to be able to live in the land of giants that is the second row these days. Like, you know, where guys are looked at as being kind of short for the position if they're 6'6", you know. So you look at Billy Holland, he's just harnessed his work rate, his intelligence, added every little bit to his game that he could possibly do. Hardly ever injured, calls an incredibly smart line out, is just one of the best there is when it comes to plotting and tactically running a line out, I think. And he got his Ireland cap. You look at guys like James Collin, who had a similar kind of impact at Munster, but never got that Ireland cap. Billy Holland did get that cap, which I was delighted with. So seeing him decide to retire on his own terms at 35, he said himself in the presser this week that he wanted to go while he was still playing well. I think everybody knows those guys who stayed maybe a year too long, and I think Billy Holland is a guy who's smart enough to know that that's not what he wants for himself. Fabulous player, perfect example as a professional to younger players about getting absolutely every single bit of yourself out. You say to fellas these days, if you're 6'3", you're not going to be a second row. You might just as well get over it. But Billy Holland is an example as to what can happen if you apply yourself, train like a devil, get yourself like intellectually to be able to play the game at the highest level. There's guys who can still think their way around the pitch, and that's Billy Holland. So to see him retire with, you know, the second most amount of Munster caps, that is remarkable. 14-year career in professional rugby, that's nearly unheard of these days. Unbelievable stuff for an unbelievable player. Better man, I think. I think Munster will really miss this guy.
Yeah, I do too. Tom, just looking onto the news today as well of the contracts extensions for Munster. Mike Haley, Gavin Coombs and Neil Cronin have all signed 2-year contracts that will see them remain to the province until 2023. Particularly important for Neil Cronin insofar as he is recovering from an ACL injury, so it's great for any player who's out injured to have the security in your recovery, to know that you're coming back into a 2-year deal. More good news on the signings front with Green Court Academy players Jake Flannery, James French and Sean French, as well as Ben Healy, all advancing to the senior squad ahead of next year on 1-year deals, while John Hodnett has put pen to paper on a 2-year deal. So all in all, some good business from Munster this week, Tom, off the field with regards to signings as well.
Oh, very good. And you throw in Peter O'Mahony into that as well, and all of a sudden it's looking very, very strong for Munster over the next season or two. You know, I think Gavin Coombs, getting him signed up in a deal, because believe there would have been a lot of interest in these academy players, the likes of Ben Healy, Flannery, the likes of Casey, Coombs. All of these young fellas have interest from abroad. They really do. So, you know, John Hodnett in particular going on a 2-year deal shows you how into this guy they are with regards to how sure they are. You look at the other guys with regards to 1-year deals. That offers a bit of flexibility for both player and team, where it gives guys an opportunity to prove themselves and look to get business done nice and early next year. Because if guys like Ben Healy and guys like James French and Sean French are performing next season on their 1-year deals, they'll know early. Look, get that guy signed up onto a 2-year deal now. I think everybody will know where they stand at that point, but I think it's smart business. I look at the way that like Munster have gotten guys like Craig Casey on multi-year deals. Mike Haley, I think, is a great signing too. And as you said there, Neil Cronin, what a great value signing this guy is. You know, he's a good player. He'll offer good depth in that position where Munster are likely to have for next year at least. Craig Casey and Conor Murray away at international level. We're unsure of the status of Nick McCarthy at the moment, but from, you know, the rumours are that he's heading back to Leinster. So you look at that business done today, I think it's very smart. Signing up really good young players, getting them into the senior squad next year. It just gives everybody a chance to see where they are. I think by the time the Rainbow Cup is out of the way and you're midway through September, October, I think they'll have a really good idea about what these lads are like in the senior setup, and then just go from there.
Yeah, that game, of course, the Connacht game on tomorrow night as well on television, so we'll have a chance to sit back and watch that. But what are you doing on the Patreon page for Munster fans between now and then so they can be fully prepared for the game?
Well, I will be looking at Connacht's kicking game on the Red Eye. That is out right now. And the Blood and Thunder podcast, which is out as well, just basically looking at where Munster are at right now and what they'll be looking to do against this Connacht side with the team they've selected. So that's on patreon.com/